All right, here we go. Brand new Flyers Daily for the 18th of October, 2024. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. Flyers wrapped up a 4-game season-opening road trip in Seattle last night. Final score, 6-4. We'll get into the particulars in just a moment, but the 4-game road trip, I thought last night's game was kind of the game to decide the fate of the road trip. Was it a good road trip? Was it, if they would have got an overtime loss or just 1 point out of the game, shootout loss, would it have been just an okay road trip? Or would it be, man, they left some points out there on the road trip? And that C is my answer. They left some points out there on this road trip through some sloppy play. We always see sloppy play in the beginning of an NHL season. Defensive structure is not great. I didn't think Seattle played with great defensive structure. I don't think any of the teams really have so far. We see this every year. Eventually the coaches get that structure dialed in to thwart what teams are trying to throw at them. Plus you get tape of the opposition. You get more of what they're trying to do, and you find a way to try and stop it. But in the beginning of a season, you see some high goal totals like this every year, and they say, well, the goal scoring is up in the NHL. Isn't that a great thing? I don't say that, but they say that because this happens at the beginning of every year. You see some sloppy defensive zone coverages. You see some errant passes. You see the referees calling more penalties. Referees always seem to call more penalties in the beginning of the year, but eventually things kind of go back to their water level within the league. But that being said, 6-4 loss to Seattle. Flyers had a good start to the game. That's why I really look at this game as a big missed opportunity. You wonder, last game of a 4-game road trip where you're out on the other side of the continent, you've been going back and forth between BC to Alberta, back to Seattle, and you just want to get home, check your mail, whatever, get used to East Coast time again. And how you go into that game, usually in the beginning of it, it tells the story. And the Flyers got off to a great start. First period, 4:21 in, Scott Laughton, wraparound goal, is able to beat Philip Grubauer to the post, and it puts the Flyers up 1-0. Good play here by Garnet Hathaway at the blue line. Puck is just inside the Seattle zone, but he's got a teammate still in the zone, so if he touches it, it's offside. But he's kind of just standing by it and hovering his stick over it. Has to absorb a hit until his line mate clears the zone, and as soon as he does, boom, he gets it over to Ryan Poehling, who takes the shot. Philip Grubauer, for some reason, was goaltending the end boards and totally overcommitted on it. Scott Laughton scoops it up with the wraparound, puts the Flyers up 1-0. Poehling and Hathaway with the assist. Laughton's first of the season. Then at 18:15, here's where the uh-ohs begin. Brandon Montour picks up his first goal of the season to make it 1-1. Now, on this goal, it's a shot from the right point, and there's traffic in front. There's a Seattle player tangled, if you will, with the Flyers defender, creating a bit of a layered screen. Not really a layered screen, but just a decent-sized screen. And Fedotov is looking up over it. And you can see him looking up over it. And when he eventually decides to look around it, he actually looks to the long side, the middle of the ice, not the short side. And Montour takes the shot, and because he's up, he can't get down, and it slides under his 5-hole because he doesn't seal that ice because he's not low enough there. So we talk about for the goaltenders in the NHL to look around screens, don't look over them. He's 6'7". He can look over a lot. But in the NHL with the traffic, you got to look around them. And the place to look around it was on the short side. If people want to check my Twitter, at Jason Myrtetus, I tweeted out a picture of just before the shot was released and where Fedotov was up, looking over the screen, and that there was room on that short side to look around that screen. So that's something he's going to have to adjust to. I've talked about it ad nauseum at this point. But that makes it 1-1. 18:58, though, just a few seconds later, with 1:02 left in the period, Scott Laughton gets the second of the game, second of the season, and that puts the Flyers up 2-1. And again, Garnet Hathaway makes a very underrated play. As this play is developing into the zone, Hathaway battles up the middle through a couple of Seattle defenders to make himself at least a perceived option for Scott Laughton to center it to him. And Philip Grubauer senses that may be an option, and he cheats a little bit. He starts to pull off his post. And Scott Laughton sees that sees the daylight, and hits it. Flyers go up 2-1 after one period of play. So you're in good shape, okay. Started out the game good, had a good first period, gave up a bad goal, but you're up 2-1. Go into the second period. 3:06 in on the power play, Jared McCann picks up the power play goal. That makes it 2-2. And it's kind of just back and forth. Not a ton really happening in this game. As I mentioned, there's only 29-23 with the shots. It wasn't a high-event hockey. But then there's about a 3-minute stretch that really kind of sealed the Flyers' fate, even though they battled back in the third. At 14:57, Ellie Tolvanen picks up his second. That makes it 3-2 Seattle. Then at 17:44, Jordan Eberle scores. That makes it 4-2 Seattle. And then at 17:52, Shane Wright scores. That makes it 5-2 Seattle. 3 goals in under 3 minutes. I think 2 minutes and 52 seconds. And Seattle goes up. And another goal in there, like the McCann goal, is not a great one. There's a bad rebound goal, that a clear-sighted shot from distance that Fedotov couldn't just kind of corral, and the rebound was left there and beat him out on his right leg, sprawling. So you could tell the goaltender just was not on it. And Brian Smith asked me during the intermission, what do you want to see out of Fedotov in this third period? I said, I don't think we're going to see him. I think they're going to come back with Sam Ersson. I don't think they wanted to come back with Sam Ersson, because I don't think they wanted him to play tonight with the upcoming schedule, but you had to in this situation. Because when a goaltender is struggling like that, you don't just keep him out there to let it get worse. You got to protect him a little bit from himself. So out comes Fedotov, in comes Ersson. Third period starts. Flyers really good pressure in the third period. And at 10:19, it pays off when Cam York picks up his second of the season on a good clear-sighted shot, just beats Grubauer. That makes it 5-3. And all of a sudden you're going, okay, that's a little interesting. They're back within 2 with just under 10 minutes to go. And then at 12:32, Flyers on the power play, and they get a power play goal. Are we saying power play goal every game here? Yeah. Jamie Drysdale picks up his first of the season, assisted by Matvei Mishkov, and now it's a 5-4 game, and there's 7.5 minutes to go. So there's time, plenty of time. Flyers have the momentum. But at 14:52, going back to my point before of in the beginning of the season, you see some sloppy hockey, sloppy coverage, sloppy decision-making. And in this situation, we see a read that just isn't picked up. Jamie Drysdale's playing with Cam York. Those two are not used to playing with each other, and he pushes up the wall on the right side of the offensive zone to try and keep a puck in, and Cam York doesn't see it, doesn't read it to shade back into the middle, and all of a sudden Oliver Bjorkstrand gets the breakaway. York tries to get him to disrupt his shot as much as he can, just doesn't get close enough to him to do it, and Bjorkstrand beats Sam Ersson. That makes it 6-4, and that's your ball game right there. So good element out of it. They battled back in the third. They didn't just tuck it in and say, okay, road trip's over, let's just pack it in now. That's one of those things. I looked at that third period as an opportunity for the Flyers to lay a couple of bricks towards what their identity is going to be. You're going to be a team that battles back no matter what the circumstance is. That's what you need to do that. And even though they lost the game, get something out of it. Get something out of this game. I also had said during the intermission, it'd be great for Owen Tippett to get one. I thought he was really active and really aggressive in the game. It'd be good, even if they lost the game, just for him to get one, to get off the schneid so he can just stop thinking about that and just play hockey. But that didn't happen. They did battle back. That's a good thing. And they got another power play goal. They have power play goals in 4 straight to start this season. What? I mean, this is stunning. And again, Mishkov's involved, and you'll take it. They have 5 power play goals on the season now. And I guarantee that was until December, until they got that. I think at one point the Flyers were like 1 goal behind shorthanded goals to power play goals last year. Pretty, significant portion into the season. But it's a loss for the Flyers. And again, 1-2-1 on the road trip, only 3 points. Got to get after it at home starting on Saturday against the Vancouver Canucks. Now, we talked the other night about, after the game on Tuesday, about the number that jumped out at me was Sean Couturier's ice time, where he played under 10 minutes. He played 13:31 in this game, so it's up. It's not a lot, No doubt. It's not a lot. The ice time was much more spread out in this game. Mishkov actually led the way for Flyer forwards at 21:54. But Couturier, I thought, played better in this game. He had some opportunities, and we'll see where this goes because he's obviously a very important player for this team, being a center and up the middle. Face-offs, he went 6 for 6 on draws, but that's going to be a big element. Morgan Frost actually was really good in the face-off circle. He won 10 of 15 face-offs in the game. So Couturier plays 13:31, as I mentioned. Mishkov plays 21:54. Tippett played 20:12. Sanheim, 24:53, and York, 25:17. This is something we're going to have to keep an eye on as well, on wearing those guys down. The low guys on the minutes played on the blue line were Yegor Zamula with 13:40 and Rasmus Ristolainen at Eric Johnson at 12:36. So you got to be careful about that. I thought maybe that was a good spot to get Emil Andre in to the game last night. Didn't happen. We'll see if he's still with the team on Saturday. Maybe he's an option when the Flyers play against Vancouver coming up on Saturday. Get a little bit of speed in the lineup. Can quarterback power play too. So there's some options there for sure in regards to that game. So we'll see how that plays out. But tough road trip. Tough road trip to start the year. One of those things that you got to just move on from it. The season's not over. It's only 4 games in. We don't need to get all dramatic about different elements and this team, this team, and that. Sometimes teams don't get off to great starts, and this is not a great start. I hope for more, especially when you score 4 power plays and you put that on the board. You want to see that team be able to, really take advantage of that. This is like found money that they didn't have last year. They've given up 18 total goals in 4 games, 4.5 a game. It's too much. Can't give up that many goals. Power play, one of the good things about the road trip. No question about it. The power play has been a huge revelation for this Flyers team. Penalty kills got to sharpen up a little bit. They gave up a power play goal in this one. But overall, really the star of this season so far has been the power play for the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, let's go back to the goaltending real quick. So I just mentioned they gave up 18 goals. It's an average of 4.5 a game. It's too many. To have to outscore that is difficult. And with Fedotov, and you saw in the first period, and then obviously through the second period that he was really struggling. And kind of the effect of that. 2 things. We're going to talk about the effect of that and what he needs to do to transition. But the effect of having a goaltender in there that's struggling, it has a huge effect on the players in front of them. Because the players are afraid to make a mistake. It's the psychology part of the sport. You go, if I make a mistake, it's going to end up in the back of my net. If I try and press too much, it's going to end up in the back of my net. They're playing the game with mental handcuffs on. The trickle-down effect of faulty goaltending is it plays itself forward to the skaters in a huge, huge way. And the opposite is true as well. When you have really good goaltending, and you know that if you make a mistake, you got the guy back there that's like a big eraser that's going to erase the mistake. You're not afraid to be creative and take chances. You don't play safe. And that lends to things going better. So the two go hand in hand. Last year, in the beginning of the year, when the Flyers were a high transition team, the reason why I think they were successful at it is because they were getting saves when the fast-paced transition offense didn't work and odd man rushers would come the other way. They were getting bailed out by goaltending, so they kept trying it, and it turned out to be a huge element of the way that they generated offense and goals last year. So you got to get those saves because it does affect the entire team if you're not getting those saves. And look, the guys on the team that are on the ice when they get scored against and it's a bad goal allowed, or the guys on the bench, they're totally aware when the goalie's struggling. It's one of those situations where they're, oh, geez, man, we need to save there. They may not verbalize it. Some guys might verbalize it. But it's, man, you got to stop that one. Like that one through the 5-hole. You got to stop that one. The rebound goal. Got to corral that rebound. It's deflating. So that's the trickle-down effect when you don't have tremendous faith that the guy standing back there in the crease with all the crazy equipment on is going to be able to bail you out. Now, as far as Fedotov, when he came over last year, kind of out of the blue, none of us were expecting, and also Ivan Fedotov's coming over. Obviously, at that point, the Flyers were reeling. Sam Ersson was forced with the departure of Carter Hart into playing a ton of games, probably before he was ready, and the coaching staff had to ride him night in and night out. And you could tell he was worn down. You could tell with the way the team was playing that they needed somebody to put in to give you some capable starts. And they weren't getting it from Felix Sandstrom or Cal Peterson. And when Fedotov came over, I remember on social media was, put him in there. He was here for like 15 hours. They were like, put him in the game tomorrow night. Have him start. I'm going, wait a minute. There's a lot of adjustment here. Got to learn the language. He's got to learn communication with his defensemen. Just jumping from the KHL into the NHL is not easy, to say the least. I had Kevin Woodley on this podcast from In Goal Magazine. We talked about it. Kevin went as far as to say that it's almost like playing a different sport, playing goalie in the KHL versus the NHL. And we talked about the things that he would have to adjust to in the NHL. And we've talked about it here a ton. And dealing with traffic. Because the NHL, some of the rinks in the KHL are NHL size, but they do play in some bigger rinks. But the traffic around the net isn't anywhere like the way they attack you in the KHL. Nothing like the NHL. The NHL, it is all in front of the net. It is compact, and the opposition is trying to take away the goalie's eyes, screens, deflections, rebounds, all that stuff. And the way a goalie deals with that, to fight through those screens and find the puck at release, is paramount. And reading those plays, reading the options the other team has, being ahead in your reads. These are all things that we talked about here and that he's got to adjust to. It's not going to just happen 2 games in. I don't know how they play this out. Flyers have 2 back-to-backs next week. You have a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday with Washington. You can't play Ersson in every back-to-back. And then Saturday, Sunday, it's a back-to-back with Minnesota and Montreal. So that's probably 2 spots where the coaching staff's going to have to get the backup in. He's got to figure it out. It's not easy to just say, well, he's got to figure it out and figure it out fast. It's not something you just figure out. It's not something, a light bulb goes off and you know how to do it. But he's got some things that he's got to work on. Probably look at a lot of tape with the goaltending coach, Kim Dillabaugh, looking at where the threats are and was he recognizing those threats when the play was happening? All of those things. Depth. I thought depth in the game was an issue again. He doesn't seem like he knows what depth he wants to play at in certain situations. There was the power play goal. I think it was the McCann goal. It was a clear-sighted shot, and he was kind of retreating as McCann's coming in and winding up for the shot. And all that's doing is making him smaller. Like if you're watching this on YouTube, if my surroundings are the net and you're looking at me to shoot, if I'm moving back, you see more of my surroundings. You're going to see more net. And if I'm moving forward, you're seeing less net. So it stands to reason. So he's going to have to figure these things out. Flyers need to get quality starts from their backup. Being an East Coast team, the travel's not bad like it is for Dallas or the teams in Alberta or other teams. But the back-to-backs, you have a lot of them. I think the Flyers have 15 or 16 this year. So you got to get quality starts from your backup. And again, the starter, if in a perfect world for me, Sam Ersson would probably play 56 games. That's probably a good number. Igor Shesterkin over the last 3 years has averaged 54.8 games, I think it is. That's about the number. So that leaves a lot of games for a backup to play. So you got to have that capable backup. So we'll see how this goes with Ivan Fedotov. But there's a lot there that needs to be worked on. And I've expressed that we need to have some patience. But it's hard to have patience when you watch that game and you see certainly 3 savable goals that Seattle scored. And that's tough to see. That was probably the difference in the game. No question about it. So we'll see how that kind of develops here over the next week, and we'll continue to assess it as we go as well. One last thing that I want to get to in this episode is I got this, saw this tweet from somebody. A guy named John Foley said, "Who are the best Flyers Twitter follows now that I'm a number one Flyers boy? Recommendations, please." I think this was after the Phillies lost and, Mishkov scored a lot of that buzz. And I had replied to his tweet, and I just said, "Jump on the bus. My hand is out, ready to welcome any and all." And I got this response from a guy, W.S. Hancock, and he said, "Props to you, Jason, for not gatekeeping. It's hard to not gatekeep with new fans when they have not known the tough times us fans have had to live through, especially the last 10 years. Will be real tough when new fans start to criticize this new era of orange, which I love." And now I'm a really big believer in not gatekeeping, not being one of those guys. Well, you weren't there when things weren't good, or you weren't there when they stunk, or you didn't suffer through the pain. You're just here for the good times. You're going to jump on now. I don't care. I really don't care. I get some people, they like to jump on when things are good and they jump off when they're not. I'm never going to sit here and tell anybody how to live their life. Here's the fact of the matter for me. I love this game. I love this sport. Somewhere along the line, very early in my life, it got in its hooks in me. I started playing when I was 4. That was 1976. I'm 52. And my love affair with the game has never waned. Never. It's a big part of my identity. It's obviously part of my professional identity. And I welcome everybody to come into the party. Even if you don't stay, if things go sideways. I don't care. Because maybe some of those people that come in, maybe they would leave, but it gets their hooks in them. I think this game's great. I think this game's great when you know more about it, too. So that's why I try and talk about like the goaltending and those kind of things and strategic elements. But if you want to jump on board and there are Flyers fans gatekeeping you, push them aside and get on the bus. No gatekeeping. I want as many people in the party as possible. You're having a party? Come on over. We want them all in. So I think that's important. So I wanted to bring that up. I know if you're watching this or you're listening to this, you're not one of those fans. And I'll probably get some emails and DMs or tweets from people saying, I don't want people just coming in that haven't lived through what we've lived through. I get some people will feel that way. I don't. I do not feel that way. And one more thing. I said that was the last thing I lied. I'm going to mention this a couple times over the next bunch of podcasts, but I want to incorporate some new elements into Flyers Daily. Now, when we started this 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago now at this point, we've done, I think, close to 1,400 episodes. I had no idea what it was going to be. No idea. I had no idea what I was doing when I came to podcasting. Some will say I still don't. I was a radio guy, a talk show host, and a radio programmer for 30 years. And I come into this podcast, and I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out. And look, we've tried some things, they didn't work. We've tried some things and go, oh, that's pretty good, and it worked. One of the things that I tried pretty early on was taking questions via social media, via Twitter, and we've gotten a great response to that. I want to take that part to the next level. So what we're going to do is we're going to be able to I want to put your voice on the podcast. So you got your phone, you have that little voice memo app on your phone, or if you're on an Android, I'm not sure what it's called, but you can record a message. And I want you to record a message. Instead of just communicating with each other through DMs or on Twitter or email, let's communicate me hearing your voice. So I want to hear the passion. I want to hear the elation when things go well. I want to hear the anger when things don't go well. So record just anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds and send it to me. Here's the email address you can send it to. It's flyersdailypodcast@gmail.com. Record the audio message. We'll play some of them on the podcast and talk about them. But I want to give you guys, the audience, even more of the show. Because, again, I I didn't know what this show was going to be. But what I do know is the more involved you guys are with programming it, with your passion, insight, knowledge, all those things, it can only make the show better, which is why I love doing Twitter questions and I love, fill in this blank or whatever it might be. How you feeling about this or that? So, again, record that 30 or 60-second question, comment, rant, whatever you want it to be, and email it to me at flyersdailypodcast@gmail.com. Look, the evolution and the arc of this podcast, it's this season, we're kicking it up a notch. I'm going to try some other things as well. I have a bunch of ideas. We want to get the quality better of the content, the insight, the involvement, and give you guys even more ownership of this podcast. At some point, I want to do something where I grab one of you guys, a listener to the podcast, and have you do the interview. We bring you down to the Flyers practice facility, whatever, and you do an interview with a player. I think that would be awesome. A fan interviewing a player. I think that'd be cool as hell. We're going to do some Flyer ticket giveaways, maybe some merch. We're kicking it up a notch this year. So send those voice messages to flyersdailypodcast@gmail.com. And we'll start playing them immediately. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Flyers will be back at it on Saturday when they face the Vancouver Canucks. Home opener. Hope to see you there. In the meantime, everybody enjoy the hockey this weekend. We'll talk to you Monday with Bill Meltzer on a brand new Flyers Daily.